So I'm going to switch over and actually run through the software and give you a real live look at how the software works. Okay, so let me give you the lay of the land that you're looking at here. Okay, so I've logged into our demo environment and I'm using the P6 client to show you the QA tool. Now the QA tool can be used in P6 Web as well. So it's not like it's just for the client. You can use it in either of the environments. If your team uses P6 Web or if some of the team uses P6 Web, the functionality sits in both of the P6 options. Now I've got a handful of projects that are have the P6-QA has been run on those projects. So let me explain what we're looking at. So we're looking at a layout. It's called Schedule Quality Indicators, and it's, of course, at the project level that we're looking at these quality indicators, the flags. So we've run the QA on a handful of projects, and you can see some have some good things and some have some issues. Okay, so you've got a very quick, easy to use sort of dashboard right within P6, so the team can see where they've got still some work to do and where they're doing fine on their schedule development. So let me run through some of the quality metrics that we're checking, and these are pretty common across all those different standards: the DCMA, GAL, PMI, AAC, and other. So looking at durations is pretty darn common. We want to identify activities that have high durations. Now, why is that? Because high duration activities are harder to manage and harder to update. Okay, so you don't want a lot of those in your schedule. So that's why that's part of a quality check. High float. High float is another one. So typically, high float means the activity can move around a lot and it won't bump the end date of the project. Well, that could be a signal that you possibly missed some logic, meaning there's an open end, what would be called an open end, which means you either are missing a successor or possibly a predecessor. Okay, so those are things that you need to be checking, because if you've missed a logic tie on some activities, your critical path could be incorrect, and you could actually have criticality on activities that just got missed in logic development. So you don't want to have that. So that's a key thing for you to be monitoring and managing and making sure you don't have any open ends. Now, together with logic, we have this concept of, in P6, a lag, a positive or negative lag. So negative lag may also be referred to as a lead. So we're wanting to look at whether we have any positive and or negative lags in the system. Okay, so in this case, if we've got a green check mark, it means that we either have none or we have not too many of them. Okay, and I'll talk about what the criteria is, and we'll look at this notebook at the bottom, which will help us understand what is making something red versus green. Now, let's touch on the next one. So the simplest type of schedule to work with is the one that has the bulk of the logic as a finish to start. So we want that kind of schedule. Now, some of you might say, well, that's crazy, it's impossible, because it's going to make too many activities. Well, I'm a big believer that more activities that are easy to update is actually a better thing than less activities that are very frustrating to update, very frustrating to explain to people when you're supposed to get started. Okay, so that's really what this is driving at. Let's minimize non-finish to start logic. And you can see we've got a red flag here, meaning we've got a lot that are probably start to starts with lags, finish to finish with lags, and possibly start to finish as well. Okay, so we're monitoring start to finish explicitly on activities, and so you can do that as well. So you can identify very specific things you want to monitor, and you can add those to the QA tool. Now, currently, you need to have Emerald help you do that. So, but it's not a big effort for us, and we can typically add an additional quality metric check with just a few hours of work. So there typically is a little bit of consulting in rolling out the QA tool. Now, on these last few points, we're monitoring whether we've got hard constraints, soft constraints, and the definition of those is typically the mandatory versus the on or before, on or after type of constraints. Okay, so they're typically classed as two different type of metric and monitored separately, just because of the influence on the schedule can be quite different. Okay, so that's why they're generally monitored as two distinct categories. And in this last case, we're monitoring resources. Okay, so whether we've put resources on the activities and what that all means. So let me go a little further and explain what we're seeing in the notebook. Okay, so let me go to the notebook that is matching schedule quality. And you can see that in this example, we've split those to the DCMA specific quality metrics. Okay, so we can make specific notebooks depending on the type of quality standard your team is adhering to. So if you were doing a GAO, we could have a GAO specific quality notebook for you, which makes it very easy to communicate to management where we've got some issues with the schedule that we've either built or we're critiquing because we're receiving it perhaps from an engineering firm or perhaps from a construction company. So let me dig into the schedule quality one, and I can go into modify, which will let me take the full screen, which makes it just a little bit easier to walk through. So some of those quality gates that we saw on the scheduling, they're listed inside of here, and there could be additional ones as well. So you can see that we have targets, and it's a percentage. So what we're saying there is if you can go with a zero tolerance, so meaning no activities can have this problem. In this case, an open end. So if we say zero tolerance, this is letting us know that we have 10 activities out of 27 that it looked at. And of course, that's a high percentage. So even if we had a slight tolerance, like 5 activities out of 100 could have an open end, we're way beyond that. Okay, so we clearly have some struggles, or we just maybe haven't finished getting our predecessors and successors all sorted out. Now, in addition to this quick overview, okay, which complements the flags that we've got on screen, we can dig in to see the specifics of those open ends. Okay, so this gives us a list. Now, it may not be the full list because in some cases the list could be darn long. So we give you a sampling, and you can set the sample size. So if we want to keep this report short, we might only show 10, the first 10. If we're okay for it to be longer, we might say, give us the first 50. But that's configurable in any case, depending on what you want in this report. Okay, and we can always dig into the activities. So the report may have a slightly different audience than, of course, the P6 end user, who's going to go and either fix that up or critique back to the contractor or engineering company where they've got some issues and what we would like done on that. So this report complements what we see on the screen in the dashboard. Okay. Now, these are configurable. These targets are configurable. So let me just go to a layout that marries up with this. And my layout is the schedule quality criteria. Okay, so these marry up. They're the A series of layouts. So this is how easy this is to work with from a P6 user perspective. So inside of the criteria layout, I set up what my criteria is. Now, the criteria is, it depends on what we're monitoring. Okay, so if we're monitoring logic, the criteria is a percentage of the activities. So if we have 100 activities in the schedule, a 5% is saying that as long as I have 5 activities or less with an open end, then it would give me a green flag. But as soon as I hit more than 5, then it should show red. Okay, so this allows you to set your tolerance depending on where you are in the project development. So if you're early stages, you can have a higher tolerance knowing that they're working through them. Or if you prefer, you can just set all the tolerances at 0. Okay, so completely configurable, up to you, and that allows you to have different settings for different project types as well. Now, some of the quality metrics require a bit more information to go along with the percentage, so the red and green. So duration is a good example. So duration, we're setting how many activities can have a high duration. But in addition, we need to set what is a high duration. Okay, so these are targeted in hours. P6 works in hours in the back end, so we put the data in hours. And again, this allows us to make it specific to the kind of project. So a turnaround or a shutdown outage type project where we're scheduling in hours, our tolerance may be quite low for what we call a long activity. So a rule of thumb to use is 3 update cycles. That's a pretty good standard rule of thumb. So anything that's longer than 3 update cycles starts to become difficult to update. So in a turnaround, 3 update cycles might be 72 hours if you're doing it daily. If you're doing it every shift, it might be 36 hours. On a capital project that's a few years long, you might be updating every week. Okay, so then you would adapt that based on the project specifics that you're working with. So this is how easy the configurations are to set up. We try, in all our tools, we try to take full advantage of P6 out of the box functionality so that the main users are not having to relearn another tool. And that's what we've done here with the QA as well. We've embedded the bulk of it right inside the app.